Hey guys, Bryant Shook here. I'm gonna do something a little different today, something I've never done. But I wanted to, I guess, record a recap of my Cocodona 250 for this year, 2025. Um, had big goals, big kind of aspirations. Finished last year, which I think showed me that it was possible for me. It's a very long way, and last year definitely showed me what I'm capable of. And so I signed up this year with the hope of going faster. My goal was 85 hours. And spoiler alert, I finished in, I think, 115 hours. So definitely fell short of my goal. But I just kind of wanted to give a recap of my race, and hopefully that it helps some people that are, maybe doing the race next year or, sometime in the future. Wanted to start off with first some gratitude. So there's definitely some people that I have to thank. Starting off with my wife Kara. There's not a day that goes by that she isn't supportive of these big dreams. These are expensive. They're time consuming. It's a very selfish sport when you start looking at all the financials, all of the work that goes into this. Weekends are pretty much taken up, and anytime we plan a trip, we plan around these things. So I'm extremely grateful to her. Secondly, I'm thankful to my daughter. She's only 5, but I don't think she has any clue the impact that she's had on me. She's a huge part of my why and my drive to achieve at these things. But also, she has been on many runs where she has sat in a stroller, and she's getting to the point where she doesn't necessarily want to do that. But she still sits there and helps me train. And, when she weighs, 45 pounds, that stroller's heavy. And I do think that it definitely helps get my legs ready. So I'm grateful to my family. Secondly, I'm thankful to my parents. My mom and my dad both crewed the entire race. My mom specifically was at every single aid station and didn't miss a spot. And then my dad actually paced me for over 20 miles of the Cocodona course. And so that was a huge undertaking. He did Dead Horse to Deer Pass. And I was kind of in a low at that point, so I know it was kind of slow going. And then he also did from Iron King to Fain Ranch. So extremely grateful to both of them. It's long days, long nights, all hours of the day. It's a huge undertaking. And so I'm extremely grateful for them. Next, I want to thank my other pacers, Josh, Jess, and my boss, John. Josh did, gosh, I think it was like 70, almost 80 miles of pacing. Definitely through some lows and hopefully some highs for him. I don't necessarily know. There was a lot of lows. And then Jess did 31 miles with me up and over Mingus into Jerome. And I'll talk about it later, but that 17-mile stretch of mud was probably just my lowest low throughout the whole race, and definitely frustrating. And I apologize that she had to go through that and pretty much pull me along. And then my boss, John, did from Whiskey Row to Iron King. This is the second year that he's done it, and I'm extremely grateful that he takes time out of his life, to come out and support me, on this journey. Also, family and friends. There's a lot of people that have, reached out during the race. I try to post every now and then. I definitely post during the lows. I think it helps me kind of get through it. And a lot of people, commenting and just kind of, providing that motivation to help move forward. One of my friends, Tim, I actually called on my way to Fort Tuthill. He basically said at the start of the race if I needed him at any point, day or night, to call. And I was having trouble keeping my eyes open. I just kind of really felt tired, even though I had a pacer with me. And so I thought I'll call him, and it gave us, 10 minutes or so to at least talk. And then after that, it gave me kind of an opportunity to talk to Josh about Tim, which, definitely killed some time and kind of helped keep me awake, before I got into Fort Tuthill. So if there's anyone I missed, I apologize, but there's just a lot of people to thank. And, this community is special, and I don't think it would be worth doing without, all of the love and support that, you get from people. So thank you all. All right, so starting out. So anyone who's following the Cocodona 250 knows that this year was different. We had hail, rain, heat, wind, thunder, mud, you name it. Last year the course was dry and it was pretty good weather. I wouldn't say it was overly hot. And, the only downside of last year was a lot of people kind of got that, maybe an allergy from, just the dust. And a lot of people were coughing up some nasty stuff, including myself. But this year was different and I expected it to be hot. I was prepared for the heat. So we were gifted with cooler weather, but with that gift also came its challenges. So day one, started out pretty good, cooler weather. I think everyone was flying through Cottonwood. And then as we made our way up to Lane Mountain, got, a little bit of a hailstorm. I think the people that were up ahead, definitely kind of got the worst part of it. But I did get caught in the hailstorm, about mile 26 where the water, drop off is. And I don't know what was going on, but all of day one, I kind of felt like just my legs were heavy. And I don't know if it was just the cooler weather, but I felt like I just had trouble kind of getting into a rhythm and just, legs felt heavy. For how cool it was, I think I only made it to Lane Mountain only like 30 minutes early, or faster, I should say, than I did last year. And so I was a little disappointed because with the cooler weather, I thought for sure that, I would be able to, I guess, speed up quite a bit and take some time off and kind of start the race off, ahead of schedule, since I was trying to take off about 24 hours. And so I was kind of looking forward to that. And I was a little disappointed at, the half hour. But, got to Crown King and my crew was there waiting for me, kind of rallied me. I was feeling a little bit down, not feeling as great as I wanted. But they got me, fed, change of clothes. I changed packs and headed out. Night one was definitely kind of cold and just kind of rainy at times. My quads, I don't know what was going on, but my quads definitely felt, just sore. And, again, I was still a little bit ahead of schedule, coming into Camp Kippa. But when I got to Camp W, as I call it, or Camp Wamatochik, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but I think that's how it is. I don't know. I felt really mentally down. My legs were heavy. Things just seemed off and I don't necessarily know why. But I left Camp W and then, I honestly at this point was already having thoughts of quitting. And I've discovered with myself that I think about quitting early and I think about it often. And I think with the amount of mileage that we're covering, it's daunting, right? Like you don't feel good at mile, let's call it 60. And you're looking at it going, I still have 200 miles to go and I don't feel great. So I do think about quitting early and often. And so that's something I'm learning as I continue to do these things. So hopefully as I continue, I'm just learning to maybe shut that down and don't, think about those things as often. But I was definitely deep in that thought process. And at one point I was even contemplating coming into Whiskey Row and telling my team that, I'm done. Like it's just something's not right. Things are not feeling the way that I had hoped, which is probably more of a poor me attitude, but that's just how I felt. And I, want to be honest with y'all. So luckily, coming into Whiskey Row, he was crew at this point, but Josh kind of met me a little ways up. It's like, hey, how are things going? And I immediately started to feel better mentally. And then when I got to the Whiskey Row aid station, my boss was waiting for me. And, I can't let him come all the way to Prescott. He's from Phoenix, so it's not too far. But, he did stay the night, anticipating, my arrival at any time. And so I didn't want to let him down. So it's like, all right, let's at least get up, get moving out of Whiskey Row. I didn't sleep there and I didn't sleep the first night. And so we left and I kind of felt better. I was like, all right, we definitely walked way more than I had anticipated. My goal for, most of my pacers was, hey, let's at least run a little bit. That didn't happen. So walked quite a bit, got into the dells. Not sure what was going on in the dells. I've done the dells now 3 times, and somehow we got turned around twice. I don't know. We even did it last year with no hiccups, but this year, for some reason, we just got turned around a little bit. I don't know if it was the clouds and, or what, but just kind of got turned around a few times, but eventually made our way out of it. And then a rainstorm came through the last 2 miles before we got to Iron King. But yeah, just kind of muddy, little slow going, but overall, I felt, I guess, relieved that I had pacers at this point. Then from Iron King to Fain Ranch, I picked up my dad, and then you're just going through cow pasture, and it's muddy and it's messy, but it wasn't as bad as I had anticipated. My coach, Kevin Goldberg, we had spoken earlier, and he said, hey, just warning you, you're going to hate it. And, so it was bad, but not as bad, I think, as I had anticipated. And once I got to Fain Ranch, weather was kind of clearing up. It was definitely, a little bit better. Sun was kind of peeking through, and that's where I picked up my pacer, Jess, and we made our way to Mingus. Mingus was pretty good until about almost, the top of the mountain. Big thunderstorm kind of moved through, and the trails basically turned into rivers. And I was prepared for it. Like, we had like our cold weather gear and everything. But it dumped so much, like I was soaked. And by the time I got to Camp Kippa, I was shivering. So I guess that would technically be like pre-hypothermic. And luckily that aid station was prepared for, I think, the carnage coming in, because everyone was kind of in the same boat. So they had a fireplace indoors, which was great. And then also Camp Kippa came in huge because in the bathrooms they have like those hand warmers. And so my crew took all my gear, basically ran everything under the hand warmers. And so I took a lot of time there, but I was way ahead of my last year's time. So I came into Camp Kippa last year about 7 o'clock, and I didn't leave until 1 a.m. And the reason for that is I started getting sick. My daughter was sick the week before the race last year. So started just feeling awful. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take some time. This year felt good, and I was leaving about the time that I came in. And so, I'm several hours ahead of schedule, and, things were kind of look good, and I was starting to feel, like, all right, this goal that I've set for myself might actually be attainable. Fast forward to the descent down to Jerome. It's a 17-mile stretch, and I was not prepared whatsoever for what lay ahead. So last year, it's dry, and I actually quite enjoyed that section. And it took me, I think it was maybe 5 hours last year to do this section. And this year it took 8.5. So ate up a lot of time. And at this point, I still hadn't slept. So I'd been up, by the time I got into Jerome, I'd been up for almost, I think, 48 hours. So I was definitely exhausted, but it was a long, just sloppy climb down. And about halfway through the climb, my right shin was really hurting. And I mean like stabbing pains, and it was sending like stabbing pains up all the way up my leg, and just to be honest, into like my groin. And it was like, it was making me like basically immovable. And so I don't know what was going on, but it was a sharp pain. And that was probably the last half. So maybe like the last 8 miles. Tried a lot of different things. We stopped, tried rubbing it out, took off shoes, like moved things around, like, just trying to do whatever we could do. I took my poles and was trying to, roll out my shin with my poles, and nothing was really helping. Ended up taking a 10-minute trail nap, maybe a couple miles from there, from Jerome, just because I found myself in such a low that, again, I was thinking about, like, I'm not leaving Jerome. Like, this is it. I'm done. I was so frustrated that a lot of the time that I had built up had been eaten away. So I was just, again, in a mental low, and I was thinking to myself, I'm not leaving Jerome. So I thought, before I get to Jerome, let's take a 10-minute trail nap, which is my first trail nap, which, great experience. I actually fell asleep. So I do think it helped a little bit mentally, did not help the shin, but finally crawled my way And I say crawl, like it was a crawl. Into Jerome, and again, my crew was waiting for me, and Jess was nice enough to provide a truck with a bed in it. And so I took a 2-hour nap, and when I woke up, the shin pain had really alleviated. So like it felt a lot better, and I was like, okay, here we go. And then I picked up my pacer, Josh, and we actually ran quite a bit from Jerome to Dead Horse. And then when I got to Dead Horse, there's a lot of people waiting for me, which is awesome. The Chaos Crewing Company was waiting there. So Brittany and Ashley, and just incredible people. If you aren't following or working with Chaos, I definitely recommend that you do so. They are just amazing people, and yeah, I can't say enough about Chaos. But they were there, kind of rallied me, got me going, and yeah, pushed on to Deer Pass with my dad. Ran a little bit, but at that point, like, kind of was regressing a little bit. Shin was hurting. Things were just kind of feeling slow. But, you know, pushed on. We kept a pretty good pace, I think, and made it to Deer Pass. At Deer Pass, Jess was actually volunteering, and there was a friend of hers that checked out my leg. I believe she's a PT, and she, you know, kind of looked at it and she goes, all right, you got one or two things happening. You either potentially do have a stress fracture, or you're on your way to getting one. Spoiler alert, I have had x-rays, and luckily I was just on my way to getting one. So x-rays came back negative, but definitely painful for the rest of the race. But yeah, got into Deer Pass. My family, when I say my family, my wife and daughter showed up, and I immediately broke into tears, which, if you don't know me, I cry a lot. And but yeah, just they surprised me there. I knew that they were coming into Flagstaff, but the goal, or the plan, I should say, was not to meet up with me, because I didn't want to put a burden on them. And, you know, you don't know when you're going to be places. And so, but they did surprise me there, and I immediately broke into tears. It's always great, you know, seeing your loved ones, especially, you know, at your low points. So definitely felt, you know, made me feel better. Then I picked up Josh again, and Josh and I made our way into Sedona. Sedona last year is where I had a big kind of mental breakdown, and it took 2 hours to move a mile. But yeah, luckily this year didn't really have any of that. We just kind of set a good pace and ended up making our way into Sedona. Sedona, I got a lot of food and ended up sleeping another 2 hours. And we got up, and I think we were out the Sedona aid station at like midnight, and made our way to the Hangover Trail. Now, the Hangover Trail, for those that don't know, is a new trail this year. Last year it was Kasner, and I powered up Kasner last year, so I was kind of excited to see, you know, what I was capable of, and I didn't know anything about the Hangover Trail. The Hangover Trail is not what I expected. Super sketchy, very exposed. It was dark, so you can't really see. So like you just kind of look over your shoulder, and it looks like it's a long way down. There's definitely some runners that I think were afraid and having a tough time kind of getting up and over that trail. But I will say the one mistake that I made is I was using a waist light the whole time, and I did not bring a headlamp. And I wish I had brought a headlamp on that section, because, you know, as things are looking up, it was dark. So I had to like position the waist light to try to see a couple of times, you know, where to put my hands. So if I do the race again in the future and that trail is still there, I'm definitely bringing a headlamp. The reason I typically don't wear a headlamp is they do give me headaches. And so sometimes I'll pack one with me, but I definitely like using a waist light. And so that would be the one thing that I would change. But absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was dark, but the clouds were gone at this point, and the stars were out on full display, and it was just absolutely beautiful. So Sedona is definitely a special place, and yeah, just gorgeous. we made our way up into Foxborough. In Foxborough, my leg was definitely starting to hurt again. I also really started to have some issues with chafing. And I had been trying to stay on top of it the whole time, like reapplying, cleaning up. But the chafing at this point was starting to get a little bit out of hand. So I did take my time at Foxborough before I left on my own, because that's I think a 16-mile section from Foxborough to Munns Park where you're not allowed to have pacers. So I definitely wanted to take my time and make sure that I was in the right headspace before I headed out. I was feeling pretty good, even tried jogging for some of it, and the jogging was actually working for a while until about halfway. The wheels mentally and physically just kind of fell off. My legs were just kind of done with it, and I was definitely in a low and was having trouble. Like I just wanted to lay down the whole time and sleep. I didn't, and so because I wanted to get to Munns Park, because Munns Park you do pick up a pacer again. So, but definitely a low for me. At this point, all of the time that I had built up ahead of schedule was gone. So I was back to about the same pace as I was last year, and the goal of 85 hours was far out of reach. So definitely a little frustrating. I felt like this year, the training had gone well. So to see that goal kind of come and go was a little frustrating, but that's okay. We pressed on. Nothing super crazy between Munns Park and Fort Tuthill. We definitely pushed through Kelly Canyon faster than I did last year. Didn't want to get caught up in the, sitting next to the fire pit, because, fire pits are always a nice place to kind of waste time. But we wanted to get to Fort Tuthill. So ended up getting to Fort Tuthill and decided, okay, the goal is out of reach. I'm still feeling mentally low. I'm, a little bit frustrated. So let's take some time. Ate a lot, slept. I think it was 4 hours at Fort Tuthill, and left before the sunrise, or just before the sunrise. And it's a 15. Maybe it's a 15-mile section from Fort Tuthill to Walnut Canyon, where you are again by yourself. There's no pacers through that section. And at this point, mentally, I was done. Like, I knew that I could finish, but the chafing, the shin, the brain was just completely over it. At one point, I ended up calling my wife, just this, kind of get some mental help. I broke down in tears talking with her, and then my coach Kevin Goldberg called, and I ended up crying with him, which I don't think I've ever done before, but couldn't help myself. So ended up bawling my eyes out for most of that section. Just kind of frustrated. I was just in that death march. A lot of people at this point were passing me by, and there was nothing I could do to go much faster. The chafing at this point had really gotten out of hand. And luckily, when I talked to my wife, I asked her if they could go to the store and pick up some of the Neosporin with lidocaine, and they had that waiting for me at Walnut Canyon. Got to Walnut Canyon, found out that my tracker wasn't working, so luckily the team there got me a replacement by the time I got to Wildcat. The Neosporin with lidocaine was a huge game changer for the rest of the race. Just kind of alleviated that pain. So then the only thing hurting at this point was my ego and my shin. Now, I got to give a huge shout out. No idea who this person was, but the medical person at Walnut Canyon. Full disclosure, never done this before, but had to go to medical and tape my chafing areas. And they did it for me without, blinking an eye. So kudos to them. But it was a huge game changer for me. No dignity at this point, just kind of a weird low moment. But I think when you've been out there, I think this was day 4 or 5. Just everything goes out the window, and you're just doing whatever it takes to get to the finish line. And for me, that was taping up my butt cheeks. So super grateful for that person. yeah, shout out. They, the team there, just they do whatever they got to do to help you, kind of achieve these goals. Um, Ended up leaving with Josh again to, I guess this would be to Wildcat. Not long after leaving Walnut Canyon, it was middle of the day and I just felt exhausted, needed to take a trail nap. But then made it to Wildcat, and two of my pacers from last year were there, Greg and Kelly, and definitely helped kind of pick me up. And I ate a ton of food at Wildcat, which Wildcat is a great aid station. And then not sure what happened. I don't know if it was just the food or, just the support that I was getting, but I left Wildcat really feeling determined, and the end was in sight. And so I just put my head down, and Josh and I powered our way up Mount Eldon. And I feel like there was no lows. Let's just get this done, right? Let's get to the top. Ended up getting to the top just about sunset. And so, we were able to kind of see, both sides with a little bit of light, and it was just absolutely stunning. And so made our way, up Eldon, and then the down definitely hurt the shin. Every step was just absolutely painful for those 2 miles down Mount Eldon. But again, the finish line was in sight. And so I was just going to power through it. And then got to, I think it's Trinity Aid Station, ate a little bit, but pretty much pressed on. At this point, we only had, I think it's 4 miles left to go. And at this point, I'm just hobbling, doing whatever it takes to, get to that finish line. Nothing, crazy on the way to the finish line. My coach did come out to, I think it was by the hospital, I want to say, or maybe there's like a church, but he came out and met me on the road. He was doing some of the live commentary, so he did let me know, hey, I'm not going to be, at the finish line, but I wanted to come out and, congratulate you. And so super happy to see him. Most of you probably know him, but he's just an incredible guy. You can't ask for a better coach or friend. So definitely, grateful for him and all that he does. But it's great to see him out there, even though he wasn't going to be, at the finish line. Got to the finish line and half expected to break down into tears, and I didn't. It was all smiles. My mom, my dad, my pacers, and a pacer from last year, Coop, was there, and it was just, I was so just filled with gratitude and proud of myself for not quitting, because I did want to quit the whole time. Literally from day one, I kept expecting things to kind of get better, and they just really didn't. I just kind of sat in that low and powered through it. But grateful that I did, to get my second, belt buckle, and, learned a lot about myself, what I'm capable of. But yeah, crossing that finish line, just super grateful to my crew, my pacers, everyone involved. So it was all smiles, which kind of surprised me, but all smiles this year. So yeah, so that's kind of my recap of 2025. I think it's good to have, big goals, time goals, and chase those. However, I am reminded that even though we set some of these goals for ourselves, just finishing this endeavor is a goal in itself, and I don't ever want to lose sight of that. And I felt like I started to, and I think that's what led to me being kind of in a low for most of it. You put in a year of training, a lot of hard work, and I went into this feeling much better. I felt stronger, and even running times are definitely improving. So I had big goals for myself, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that just finishing a 250-mile race is just incredible, and it's hard. And I think even this year, I want to say it was like 35% of the race didn't finish, and so I don't ever want to lose sight of that. And so I guess that would be my first advice, for those doing the race next year or in the future. Don't lose sight that this is a huge undertaking, and just crossing that finish line is a gift. And so don't take that for granted. And then just remember, as you move forward, like, just be grateful. There's, I think, less than 300 people in the world started the race this year. And so it's easy, especially for people like me. I don't know why, but I get in that kind of poor me mentality. And you can't be sorry for yourself if you're feeling grateful. And we should be grateful even if things aren't going well, even if you DNF. I DNF'd 2 years ago, and I still look at that from a place of gratitude. Every time I do this race, it humbles me. It teaches me more about myself and more about what we're capable of. But more than that, it shows me how special this community is. The community of ultra running, and Cocodona specifically, or Aravaipa, I should say, just incredible people. I mean, there's a gentleman by the name of Tom. He gives up his entire week to volunteer every year. And I mean, I see this guy everywhere. Like, he's at like 4, different aid stations. He's there normally handing things out the day before the race, and just dedicates his week to helping us achieve. So maybe things aren't going to go great. In fact, I can promise you during a 250-mile race, things will go wrong and not everything will go according to plan. And that's okay. So that's, I guess, the one bit of advice I can give y'all is just enjoy the journey. If you have the race you're hoping for, that's awesome. If you don't, that's awesome too. And, both of those scenarios, you're going to learn about yourself and what you're capable of. And, that is to be celebrated. So again, that is my recap for 2025 for Cocodona. I am not going back next year. I want to pay it forward, whether that is crewing, pacing, volunteering. I will be out there. I want to be a part of that and help someone else be successful. So that is what I'm doing with 2026, and possibly going back in 2027. Obviously that's 2 years from now, so who knows? But that's kind of the plan, is, continue to get better, continue to, grow mentally, physically, and maybe 2 years see what I'm capable of. But, not going back next year. Just hoping to pay it forward to some people and help them achieve their own dreams. So again, that's my recap. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you have any questions, or you're doing the race and you want to, learn more or pick my brain, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I am more than happy to help. I absolutely love this sport, and I love the community, and I want to be a part of it. So anything I can do to help you be successful, next year, definitely feel free to reach out. My Instagram is at Bryant _outside. Feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions that you may have. But thank you all for listening. I hope that this helps anybody looking to chase their own dreams next year. So cheers to those that are tackling Cocodona in 2026, and I wish you nothing but success.